Porsche Carrera Benelux. Hello everybody, welcome to Zandvoort for the 10th season of this championship. It is race 5 of this 12 race season for a Porsche Carrera Benelux. And the story today, well, it's very much about weather conditions. You can see that the weather, the temperature is just 17.9 degrees centigrade. We've already just had a session for Porsche Carrera Cup Germany, and the grid was very much decided by the ever-changing conditions. It has been hot and sunny here all week long, but today we wake up and it's grey skies and the rain has been falling on and off, and this is going to be very strategic as the cars make their way out onto the circuit for the one and only qualifying session for the 2 races that are going to be taking place this weekend. It is races 5 and 6 of the 12 race season. The fastest time in this session will determine pole position for race 1. The second fastest time for each driver in this session will determine pole position for race 2. So the drivers need to not only put a good lap in once, they need to do it twice. And with this weather throwing a completely random element in, the decision that has to be made is whether to go out early in the session, whether to go out late, whether to put a banker lap in, because without a doubt, if it starts raining, the track is going to get slower. If it stays dry, and it is dry at the moment, as more and more rubber is laid down on the circuit, the track is likely to get quicker. So this is very, very critical. We are in Zandvoort, so Circuit Zandvoort. It's a circuit that doesn't present a great deal of overtaking opportunities, so grid positions are very important for both of the races. It's a circuit that is 4.259 kilometers around, 14 turns, 10 to the right and 4 to the left. Alongside me, I have Adam Weller, and we've just been commentating on the Carrera Cup Germany qualifying, and the weather really did throw a spanner in the works, didn't it?
It did, yes. We constantly seemed to ebb between, I don't know, I don't think it ever quite became fully dry. I think a few times we got to about 95% dry. Then there was a shower again, and it seemed as though everyone's session was over. I'll pack up, let's go to the hospitality, have a bit to eat, and we'll come back for the race. But then suddenly it was dry again. Purple sectors started showing up. I wonder if we're going to see much the same here out of the Benelux drivers.
I'm going to ask you a random question now, is whether you have the lap time for the pole position for Porsche Carrera. I will look that up for the previous one to give us an indication for this, because the circuit is currently getting quicker and quicker. You can see that most of the cars, in fact all of the cars, are out on circuit. There's nobody in the pit lane, so most of the teams are wanting to get that banker in as quickly as possible and get a time on the board. Now,
it was a 136.22 something, I think it was.
Right, well, yes. So
254 potentially.
So we're going to be looking in the low 136s potentially as a kind of a marker to this session. But as we say, the weather might change anything. And forgive us for talking about the weather. Well, firstly, we're British, so we always talk about the weather. Yeah. And secondly, it is going to be a real deciding factor, because if it does start raining, then we may see champion favourites tumbling down the order. You can see on your screen there a time for Sebastian Framer. He's been out in the Carrera Cup Germany session that's just been on, so he's going to have tired arms when he goes to bed tonight. And he's out again. He is the quickest of anybody in Sector 1, but at the moment the cars are just getting heat into the tyres and into the brakes. And we will see where we go once that happens. We are by the seaside. There's a little bit of wind, not too much, so hopefully not too much sand being blown onto the track. But the championship is all to play for. In the main Drivers' Championship, Harry King is leading the way, courtesy of 4 out of 4 in the opening 2 rounds of the season. But Glenn van Parijs is very much on a mission. He's got 3 second places and a 4th place, and he has his sights set on young Harry King, and he wants that position at the top of the standings. In the AM standings, Sebastien Lajou leads the way from Stein Lavette, and in the Pro-Am standings, it's Jan Larison, who leads the way from Didier Glorier, and a lot to play for. So we have the Drivers' Championship, the Pro-Am Championship, and the Am Championship as well, and the drivers are all fighting for position within those championships. So at the moment, the driver that is appearing at the top of the standings is Sebastian Lejoux, and 1:42.841. That is not representative, and we expect to see that time come tumbling quite significantly. Another factor, keeping it on the track, because put it in the gravel trap, not only are you going to ruin race 1, you're going to ruin race 2, because we say it again, it's not just the fastest time, it's the second fastest time that counts here as well.
I think banker times are going to be important here. Noticeably more rain on the camera lens between turns 9 and 10 than the previous showing of that corner. Harry King with 2 purple sectors at the moment. 2 purple sectors that would have also been very good times in our previous session for the identical cars of the Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland. So I think this could be a good lap for King. And I think getting bankers in is going to be imperative here today for the Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux drivers. 36.7 is a good time for Harry King across the line there, as we have a car locking up into Tarzan. But yeah, I do think everyone here just needs to get quick laps in as soon as possible to make sure that they're not affected by any issues. Ghislain Cordial just going second fastest there. That is a driver who returned last year after quite an absence. He was someone working his way up the junior single-seater ladder like a great many drivers. That all came to a halt in 2017, but made his return in Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux to the world of motor racing last year, and has proven quite handy. Obviously third in the points at the moment, and great to see him thriving at the wheel of a race car once again, albeit a very different one from what he drove previously.
And the answer is?
Formula Renault.
Formula Renault. Oh, you probably said that.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, something very different indeed. As indeed is this circuit. It really is an unusual circuit. It's very popular, as we see once again one of the cars just smoking it into the corner, and we can see the drops of rain on the camera lens, and that was Jan Larison in the Q1 track racing car that had the little lockup. The rain on the camera lens, very significant, and we'll keep an eye on that. But this circuit, very unusual and very popular amongst drivers and fans alike. Not least because of the banking, and there is an awful lot of banking around, and it's very steep indeed, particularly turns 3 and turns 14, and 19 degrees of banking up on turn 3. It makes it a spectacular circuit. And when the conditions are dry, there's a car going straight on into Tarzan. There really is a greasy surface into turn 1, which is known as the Tarzan turn. It's another one locking up there. Does he keep it out of the gravel trap? Well, I haven't seen him come round yet. Oh, and somehow making it onto the escape road and keeping it going. Even in the dry, that Tarzan turn 1 is a fairly lively corner. In the wet, I should think it's a whole different experience. I was about to say about turn 14, it is so heavily banked, the drivers are able to take it pretty well flat out, which effectively extends the pit straight and allows the drivers to pick up a slipstream as they head in towards turn 1. It creates a lot more overtaking opportunities now. This circuit has been revised. We just saw a car at the top of the picture going wide. I'm assuming and guessing that all these cars are out on slicks at the moment. I'm also assuming that grip is at a minimum.
Yes, well, there's a car there that's clearly been impacted. You can see the front end of the car is stowed in a bit there. So someone has had a moment and been collected by another driver down at turn 8. Not quite sure whom that was, but that is going to not go any further by the looks of it, that car. So that could be a delay to the session. Sure enough, red flag out immediately. And that's going to be a big shame for Harry King because he was on a purple sector in the first split and only a couple of tenths off his best in split 2 as well. So he was about to set that all-important second fast time to have a quick one for both sessions. A 14 car that is the most damaged.
Lucas van Eindhoven.
Yeah, Van Eindhoven, and the 917 car of Kreeft as well.
Yes.
Your own Kreeft. That's hugely unfortunate for him. That's the Parker Revs Motorsport car, of course, a teammate to Harry King as such there. And those two cars have come together, whether one car had a spin and another one, and the second car ended up finding him at an inopportune part of the circuit. We're not sure, but certainly with 26 minutes and 26 seconds of this session to go, that is a huge blow to drivers that were on quick times. There were a good number of green and purple sectors going on out there at the time of that red flag. Good to see Van Eindhoven get out of the car. He's from a proper racing family. You can see how upset he is with that. But yeah, he's from a proper racing family. Both his father and his brother have raced over the years. And he was kind of an observer more than a driver for a long time. And I think eventually he managed to persuade that maybe he should have a shot too. And, well, unfortunately, it's not paying off this weekend so far. That's going to be quite a repair job for the team, of course, in both instances, because they go racing at 4:30 this afternoon local time. We are, 5 hours out effectively from going racing. By the time that's come back on a flatbed, I think they'll be looking at less than 4 hours to get the car ready for racing again, which is a fine margin.
I'm told that these new 992 Porsche cars, you can replace the front end, and we have seen that happen before, where you can literally unbolt the front end and put a new front end on. It's not the work of a moment, it has to be said. And Lucas van Eindhoven, as you already mentioned, he's the younger brother of Hoob, who featured so strongly in this championship last year and has now moved on to Carrera Cup Germany. And Lucas very much wanting to follow in the footsteps of his brother at a racing family, and he was very upbeat prior to this weekend in front of the home crowd. Currently 6th in the standings, but he ain't going to be improving on that, that's for sure. And he is going to be wishing that the rain pours down now, because that will be about the only thing that'll stop him from being dropped to the very back of the pack. You can see the front of the car is looking distinctly second-hand. And
just getting a replay at the moment there. So the 14 car spun. And just collected Kreeft there.
Yeah.
The 917 absolutely nowhere to go. Van Eindhoven was too wide into the corner. Lost traction, I think, on the curb potentially. Nonetheless, he ended up spinning across the circuit. And I think it's safe to say that Kreeft was an innocent bystander in that.
Yeah, so I don't know how much damage Jeroen Kreeft has got out of that, but as you say, he was very much the innocent party and is parked up at the side of the track. He had not put in a competitive time, so he will be last on the grid, whatever, 22nd. And he's not going to improve on that, and let's just hope that there's not too much damage done to that car and that he can actually make it on to the grid. At the time of the stoppage, it was Harry King who was at the top of the timesheets, some 0.6 of a second ahead of Gisela Cordil, and in third place was Xavier Masson and Sebastian Framer in P4, ahead of the number 15 car of Glenn van Parijs, with Lucas van Eindhoven, who we saw in that, rounding out the top 6. So silence falls across the circuit. All cars return to the pit lane. It's drama out between turns 10 and turns 11, which is where that incident happened. And we have lost from this session Jeroen Kreeft and Lucas van Eindhoven.
Big shame that two drivers aren't going to get an opportunity to really set competitive times in the session. Maxime Soule, he's was 7th fastest at the time of the red flag. Sam de Jong as well. I think those two drivers, we can expect them to be up towards the top for 2 rows or so of the grid at the end of the day, I think another driver who will be a bit unimpressed with the session to this point for himself and would be ruining the fact that we had that red flag when we did is Jan Larijsen of the Pro-Am order. You see the 54 car from Q1 Track Racing just there, second in the queue in the pit lane at the moment. He was on quite a good lap, 2 personal best sectors at the time of the red flag. Larijsen stays busy, so does the car actually, because he's got an international campaign elsewhere too. Last weekend he was at Spa, this weekend he's at Zandvoort, so he's on a nice tour of the Benelux region circuits. And yeah, it races the same car across 2 different championships, so I'd say it's probably going to be one of the most well-weathered Porsche Cup chassis going by the end of the season.
To my right, Adam Weller, everybody. A wealth of information. He is the walk-in encyclopedia, if you haven't met him before. Parish notices, we're going to talk about the driver currently in 21st place, and it is the number 81 car of Pete Aronson, and we welcome him, the driver from the USA. I'm told that he's a TV producer in his spare time. This is something very different that he's doing here, but it's good to have him here for Speed Lover. And he currently, I think, in at the deep end with Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux with these conditions.
Very much so, yes. Certainly a baptism of fire to get a greasy Zandvoort on your run out in this championship. Speed Lover, of course, you mentioned them. They're a team with lots of provenance in Porsche racing, both domestically and internationally, as it looks like we are about to go back to green flag conditions. The cars are being allowed out to the bottom of pit lane, but yes, Speed Lover, back when Porsche Cup cars were a regular sight at the Spa 24 Hours, they'd always be there. They've always been at the sharp end of the Benelux series and beyond. And certainly he's picked himself quite a good team to entrust, as it were, Maxime Soulet there. That was some proper multi-story car park situation there. He had about half an inch between himself and scratching Jan Larijsen's paint.
Oh, it's all very precise, isn't it? Yes, I was going to say we're all speed lovers here. The car's just out into the pit lane at the moment. We haven't actually had any notification on our timing screens that that the session is due to be restarted, but the cars clearly are getting ready to go and lining up at the end of the pit lane. And I think when the green light comes on, it's going to be all hell let loose, because just going to repeat myself slightly here, the weather is closing in. There is rain in the area. We are due for showers, and these cars need to get a time on the board before it starts raining. And you can see there, just looking down the pit lane, the clock, of course, stops under red flag conditions. You don't have yellow flags or safety cars in the not full course yellows or safety cars in a qualifying session. It has to go red. The clock stops, and the wreckage of any cars and any debris on the track is cleared up, and then we will carry on. So 26 minutes and 26 seconds of this session remaining, so plenty of time for it all to happen. And anybody who thinks that Harry King is just going to run away with pole position and disappear off in the distance, be warned. Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux has a habit of throwing up surprises, and this could well be the kind of scenario where we see things turned upside down.
Yes, certainly with this pause. I mean, that could also mean the next, let's say, the next portion of weather could show up now, and they've missed their dry running. That could potentially be an important factor, particularly if you're down there towards the bottom of the order. That could be a huge thing. Like Jan Larijsen just being wheeled back towards the garage there. I wonder if maybe they were a bit presumptuous in thinking, yeah, we're definitely going to go green in a second, because it seems as though not much progress has been made since there was the mad dash down pit lane. Just to circle back around to Peter Aronson in the 81 car. Just having a look. Unfortunately, when you research someone as a racing driver, you often don't get a look at their career. But I've managed to find him on the ever-reliable IMDb as well, among other things. Yeah, well, among other things, he produced the Bernie Mac show. Bernie Mac was quite a famous comedian in the US in the 90s, 2000s.
Wow.
So he's got some connections looking at his IMDb page, and very successful as well in US and internationally in single single-make racing, of course. I think he had stints in both Ferrari Challenge North America and the Lamborghini Super Trofeo. So he's kind of done the trifecta now. He's in a Porsche Cup car. He's done all of the significant single-make GT racing he can possibly lay his hands on. And sounds like he brushes shoulders with the A-list when he's not doing his leisure. When he's on the day job, I'd say it's arguably just as interesting.
Trifecta, ladies and gentlemen. That's a word you didn't think you were going to hear when you got out of bed this morning, wasn't it?
Is that not a common one? Okay.
No, not one that I've ever used. We are under red flag conditions here at Zandvoort. Circuit Zandvoort, and we are qualifying for races 5 and 6 of this 12-race season. And my colleague is waving his arms at me. Do you have another stat for me just to keep us all entertained during this red flag period?
I'm going to keep running. I mean, Glenn Price, actually, I did want to talk about him a little bit. Of course, second in the championship right now, behind Harry King. What's interesting about Glenn is he's still an avid go-karter.
Really?
Yeah, he's 27 years old, and he runs in the BNL karting series, which is, I think, BNL for Benelux. I know one of my colleagues, Alex Goldschmidt, does that. He travels out to the Benelux region quite a lot, and he's a leading light in that championship. He was also in Dubai at the end of last year for the Rotax Karting World Championships, and he managed to come 5th.
Wow.
Against some people who no doubt will be knocking on the doors of junior single-seaters and so on in years to come. So he splits his time between Porsche competition and karting competition, and he's jolly handy in both.
That is fascinating information. I'm so pleased you came along this weekend, because I did not have that in my head, that's for sure. And I know you've memorised all of this without the aid of the interweb. The session will be resumed. Well, it says on our timing screen at 11:21, and it says on your screen 11:22. But sometime after 11:20, the session is going to be resuming. What's the time? It is gone 11:20. So sometime in the next 30 to 90 seconds, this session is going to be resumed. So real shame that we've lost Lucas van Eindhoven and also Jeroen Kreeft. Gutted for them, to be quite honest. But that is racing, and certainly Lucas will be pretty distraught about that, because he was really looking to impress in front of the home crowd. The engines are now running again, and the cars are now lined up out the pit lane again. And we will very shortly. Oh, and now the graphic on your screen has changed to 11:21 as well. So by my reckoning, that's 3, 2, 1, and we are green. So session resumes. 26 minutes, a little over, left. At the risk of repeating myself, fastest time counts, but also the driver's second fastest time counts. It'll be the fastest time that determines the grid for today's race, the second fastest for tomorrow's. And also to remind you that in Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux, a point is awarded for pole position. So there are points on offer even in this session, as we see the cars back onto track. It's going to take a lap or two to get heat back into the tyres, back into the brakes. Of course, tyre warmers not allowed, and they need to get weaving, because they need to get out and get round, get a time in before the pesky rain sets in once again.
Yes, that's the thing, isn't it? We've been watching the clouds over the circuit, and you get the impression that things get interesting. There you see some of the sand off the dunes. Yes, so maybe that's an indicator that the wind is picking up a bit as well.
Just in case we didn't have enough to be thinking about.
No, of course not. Why would we stop with the rain?
Sand there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The beauty, of course, of being just off the coastline here at Zandvoort. We used to get a bit closer to the coastline as well back in the old days of the circuit prior to its reconfiguration. Not the one with the banking. Of course, they reconfigured the circuit significantly after the original Dutch GP was no more. This section of circuit that we're going through actually now at the moment, incidentally, this kind of reprofiled 8, 9 and 10 section, that only came into being in 1999. It feels like it's been there forever and a day, but actually it was a fairly recent addition to bring the circuit length down, make the circuit safer going into the new millennium. Of course, now it's a full-blown Grade 1 Formula 1 circuit, so they really have invested significantly here at the Circuit Park Zandvoort, and it's great to see that it is once again one of the leading lights on the international racing scene.
And a mighty fine circuit it is too. One of the things that is striking me as you look at the cars is the amount of sand that they're kicking up into the air, even on the racing line. And we joke about the wind building up, but that, I think, is a genuine thing that might be happening. And of course, not only does the wind have an effect on the cars, but also it is blowing the sand, and I have to tell you, there's an awful lot of it in Zandvoort, blowing it onto the track. And that will have an effect on traction and will be something that could catch the drivers out. You can see the flags are flapping furiously in the breeze. That probably means there's another weather front coming in as well. We have every car out on track, apart from the two that we lost in the accident, and also the 777 of Sam de Jonge, the team PGZ by Red Ant Racing Car, still in the pits at the moment, but I dare say he will be rejoining shortly. So, Harry King, still the fastest man. Still second, Gisela Cordil, but that may all change because it hasn't rained anymore since we had that red flag. The track is likely to be getting quicker, and it could be last car out the blocks that sets the fastest time. Great shot there as they head down along the pit straight. Of the Pro-Am drivers, the fastest is the number 7 of Didier Glorier, and he is 8th overall. Our fastest AM driver is the number 33, and that's Sébastien Lejoux, and he is currently 11th overall.
Yeah, of course, he set that time very, very early in the session indeed. At one point, he was at the very sharp end of the order as the initial benchmark. Is yet to improve on that time, but now that the cars are back out onto the circuit, he will no doubt do so. Maxime Soulet just across the line. We said that we thought he would be more towards the front 2 rows of the grid, and sure enough, he's just gone 4th fastest in the number 30 car. So Maxime Soulet, one of the drivers out of the August Racing by NGT Racing garages, and NGT Racing, another team with huge success and huge results with Porsche Cup cars over the years. Soulet, of course, well, I mean, international GT racing stalwarts, and that's one of the many reasons why we kind of put our weight behind him as, yes, he should be a favourite, because Maxime has really done it all.
He really has. Driver just in front of him in the standings is a former double champion, Xavier Masson. Of course, he was the champion in 2014 and 2017. Dylan De Daly, who is the defending champion, and he was also the champion in 2016 as well, currently in 10th place, so he's got a bit of work to do from there in the 99 car, hasn't he?
He does, of course. He's his own boss. He runs Belgium racing himself. So, you know, he's responsible for all parties here. If his mechanics aren't doing well enough, that might be because he's employed the wrong mechanics. De Daly, a double champion, as you said, back in 2016 and indeed in 2021, but I believe he's not even in the top 5 of the points at the moment in this season. So De Daly is going to be hard-pressed from the position he's currently in to defend his title, but no better way to go to get started on trying to defend, trying to salvage the season than good results here at Zandvoort. But right now, he's only 10th fastest. He's going to want to move up if he possibly can.
A car that is under investigation at the moment is the number 33 of Sébastien Lejoux, the duo racing car driven by the Frenchman in the AM category, is under investigation for a pit lane incident. I don't remember seeing anything. I don't think it was the 3-point turn that he had to do to get past Laryson. But it is under investigation. We've got another red flag out on track. So what is occurring here? So clearly somebody has had a moment. This could be, well, we might need to order in lunch, I think, Adam, because this could be a long session. So somebody has had an incident out on track. The clock will no doubt come to a stop, and we have no indication. I'm just looking. 917 was gone already. Looking to see who else is... the 21 car, Tom Bonan. No, that's still running. That was just our driver tracker screen freezing up. So we have had no messages here in our commentary position as to why the reds have been thrown. We'll look at our screen and see who doesn't make it back to the pits primarily. Car 50.
This is just drivers going slow through the sector split.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah.
We have a little tracker on a screen in our commentary position, and we get to see who is moving and who isn't out on track. Oh, there is the teddy. I've been looking for that teddy bear. We did a track walk yesterday to look for it, and we couldn't find it. He's there every year, ADAC sunglasses, enjoying the Zandvoort weather. Now, what has caused this red flag? It's not often that we can't actually work out. It looks like everybody is moving at the moment. The only drivers that weren't running were Ronson, who he's okay. He's been in the pits for a long time. But so we don't really have any indication as to what has caused this red at the moment. The clock is still ticking. That may well... Oh, we've gone green again. So I'm guessing it was probably debris out on track. That's all it could have been. I'm guessing that there was a bit of body work or something out on track. So, of course, you can't send marshals out on the track to retrieve debris when there's cars running around on it. And debris can cut a tyre and cause a nasty incident. And I have to say, the barriers are flipping close to the track in this circuit in some of the places, particularly up on Lyondike, which is turn 14. We were remarking only yesterday how unmovable those barriers looked. So clearly, that was a bit of a debris clearance going on. So any drivers who were on a hot lap, who were getting into the groove, this must really mess with your rhythm. You're getting out there, you get into it, you get a lap under, and then suddenly it's red again. And I can imagine the drivers are very frustrated by this.
And, you know, Jan Larijsen, the Pro-Am driver, I think he will be particularly annoyed as well. Still a 1:44.2 as his best, the championship leader in the Pro-Am class, Larijsen. He's still not got a quick lap in. Again, he was 2 sectors into a quick lap when the red flag came out. So twice now he's been hampered by red flags, and he's going to be anxious, you know, all joking aside, all kind of wit aside. If it keeps happening, he's going to not get a quick lap in, and who knows, we've still got the weather systems at play up in the skies, and if he doesn't get quick laps in soon, he may run out of opportunity to actually do so.
We're over halfway through this qualifying session. No, we're not. We're about halfway through this qualifying session. My maths is very dodgy, don't you know? And it's Harry King who's leading the way. Second in the championship, Glenn van Parijs is currently showing in 4th, so he can do a fair bit from there, from 4th on the grid. But I think he'd rather be, if not ahead of Harry King, then certainly alongside him. So he's got a bit of work to do from there. He is just over a second slower than him on the timing screens. It is Gisela Cordeel who is in 2nd place at the moment, and it is Rick Kern who is in 3rd. But that is all likely to change because I think the track is getting quicker. We mentioned Gisela Cordeel. He's under investigation for an unsafe release in the pit lane, and may well incur a penalty if the stewards decide that the team released him in an unsafe manner. And that's significant because he is running 2nd fastest overall at the moment.
Team Parker Racing still have Harry King in the pit lane at the moment. Now, that would communicate to me, obviously he's got the fastest time, 1:36.758, but that would also communicate to me that he's got that all-important 2nd fast lap in. I don't think they would risk, I mean, Team Parker Racing, hugely experienced outfit, entered here as Parker Revs Motorsport. They would not be leaving him in the pit if they felt there was any risk that he couldn't continue his pole streak in both races. So maybe he's already got the laps in that he needs.
Maybe, and maybe their weather radar is telling us something that hasn't told us yet as well. We can see the 24 car of Stein Lauwet putting in personal bests. Currently 15th at the moment, just from your graphic. One that is very significant in the championship chase, Glenn van Parijs. A personal best in Sector 1 indicated by the green, and a personal best in Sector 3, but unfortunately it was Sector 2 that wasn't great. Has moved him up into 3rd place in the overall standing, so it's a little bit of a step forwards, but he's still got a bit of work to do from there, because he's still a second slower than our current pole sitter, Harry King.
Still think there's more time to come from about half the field at the moment. Everyone's been rather disrupted by these red flags. Harry King still not out there on circuit. We do have one car coming back out onto track now. So just King and Xavier Masson listed as in the pit lane at the moment. Everyone else feels that they've got some work to do out there on the circuit. Van Parijs just goes up to
He's getting there.
Fastest. Yeah, chips away, doesn't he? He's on another personal best. Purple first sector for Cordeal as well.
Yes, because Cordeal has now just re-jumped Parijs. So it's very much yo-yos in 2nd and 3rd, but they're struggling to get on terms with the current fastest car at the moment. One driver worth mentioning in dispatches is Jan Larijsen. Currently, our Pro-Am Championship leader is the slowest Pro-Am driver on track. He's loitering down in 20th place. So he has got a bit of work to do from there to work his way back up the grid.
Cordeal definitely had some kind of disruption through the middle sector. He was over 1.2 seconds off, almost 1.5 seconds off the best purple, the best sector we've seen in the middle all session long. Cordeal's time, though, 1:40.748. So yes, he abandoned the time just going through shot. Now to start another flying lap is that number 2 car. Cordeal, though, may feel that he was a bit short-changed there, not quite sure what happened in the middle sector, whether or not it was him or whether or not it was some traffic, but we've seen that he's got the pace in that first sector. We'll have to see whether he can string together a lap to try and challenge Harry King.
The cars are all fairly evenly spaced out on track, so they've got space to do that. The track is coming to them at the moment. It is getting quicker, so these last 12 minutes could see a fair amount of change in the standings, but they're still not getting on track, getting to terms with the fastest car. It's still Harry King who's leading from Gisela Cordeal in P2, and now Souley in the number 30 car has popped up in 3rd place, 1.014 off the fastest time. So Maxime Souley finding a little bit of pace, and suddenly Van Parijs is back down in 4th place. So he keeps getting himself up the standings, and then he drops back down again. In 5th place is our fastest of the pro rookie drivers, Rick Kern, and he is 1.058 off the fastest time.
Still not seeing many improved lap times out of drivers I would expect to work up the order. Larijsen's lap at the moment doesn't look that impressive. Saying that, I hold my hands up and say apologies, because he goes fastest, personal best fastest time through sector 2, and actually 33.4 is quite healthy in the first split as well. So the driver who's currently the Pro-Am leader at the back of the Pro-Am order within this qualifying session may be about to leapfrog up the pack somewhat. Keep an eye for the number 54 car, the dark blue and red machine coming across the line now, I believe. Let's see what the 54 can do with Larijsen at the wheel. He jumps up to 7th place.
Wow.
1:38.256 from last in Pro-Am to the very tippy top of that category, and 7th overall for good measure.
One of the things that I thought has been significant is actually Lucas van Eindhoven has still been in 8th place for much of this session. Only now does he drop down to 10th place. And to remind you, he was involved in that accident at the very beginning of the session. That says to me that the track is not improving as quickly as drivers might like, because as things stand at the moment, Van Eindhoven is still in the top 10, which is quite impressive, seeing as he hasn't turned a lap for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. I wonder, he was on his 4th lap, so he would have had 2 flyers before he was involved in that collision. I just wonder what the first flying lap looked like, where he's going to end up, given you do need 2 flying laps. Fastest of them determines your grid slot for the first race, correct? And then the second fastest flying lap is for the second race grid order, so it's imperative that you have 2 flying laps. And, well, technically Van Eindhoven did, but one suspects one of them might be a little bit worse than the other. We follow the sector times at the moment from the Andorran driver Viñas of Porsche Motorsport. He comes across the line for 12 and does improve on his time, a 1:39.393. He's been racing for the better part of 30 years. Former Barcelona 24-hour class winner, even competed in the Spanish Super Touring Car Championship in the mid-90s, and that was a fiercely competitive series at the time, factory Alfa Romeos and all sorts of things at that time. Freimuth goes third fastest in the 31 car as well, so we were speculating the circuit maybe not quite up to song anymore, but then they come and prove us wrong again with some of those quick lap times. And Freimuth 37.683, obviously off the time of Harry King, but still quite competitive.
Lucas Van Eindhoven is going to be letting the tyres down on my car at this rate, because he's now tumbling down the order, down to P11th, obviously unable to set a time. We've already mentioned Sebastian Freimuth in P3, and he has been out qualifying in the German series as well just prior to this. You can see the drivers weaving a fair amount as they come out of turn 12 and in towards the banks 13, 14. That indicates to me they're struggling to get heat into the tyres at the moment. Track temperature, can't actually
22.1.
22.1. So it's, I mean, it's not freezing cold, but the weaving just seems significant to me. As somebody who's never driven one of these things, then it's probably, you wouldn't pay much attention to that. Van Parijs is into the pits at the moment. He's down in 5th place, so he's going to be scratching his head, looking at what he can do to get back on terms. And I see you waving at the screen.
Sorry, I was just going to point out that Harry King has been sent out again. We've been following him around for the last few corners. So I was suggesting that perhaps he had the laps he needed, but Harry King is back out there with just over 7 minutes of the session left. And here he comes now through turn 8. There goes King in the Parker Revs Motorsport car, obviously comfortably currently on the pole position for the overall session, but if he can get 2 faster bank laps in for both of the grids, then that will be useful to him. He's already personal best in sector 1 actually, so you can see him pushing as he now heads down towards the braking zone for Hans Ernst Bend, turn 11 of the circuit, and he's purple in the middle split then. Just 3 corners left to go through the 3rd of them. Just the 2 turns left then, and he's got some traffic up ahead at a less than ideal point. Flashes the headlights. He's a bit worried about how this final sector is going to play out. He may well, though, get some slipstream. No, in fact, he's managed to get past the back marker. Let's see if it's affected his time then. The time he has to beat is himself on a 36.758, and he does it, a 36.127. I believe that would have netted him pole in the German Championship as well.
Wow, yeah, Harry King, man on a mission as another car just overshoots the Tarzan turn there and goes to the runoff area. Of course, Harry King, who's also doing Porsche Mobil 1 Super Cup this year as well, so he's keeping himself very busy and is proving to be very successful in that as well. Of course, if it all rains this afternoon, that might just rain on his parade, because the dry track is where he is setting most of the records at the moment, and that may well challenge him and test him as a driver. He's certainly jumping through every hoop that's put in front of him at the moment, isn't he? You can see the Glenn Van Parijs car in the pits there. So are they getting ready for one last push when the track, in theory, if the weather stays as it is, could be at its quickest? I don't think we've seen the last from Parijs yet.
No, I somehow doubt it. We'll see whether Parijs can get up there onto the front row. Of course, second in the championship at this point and falling back gradually from Harry King. He'll be eager to re-establish himself here as we approach the halfway point in the Carrera Cup Benelux season. Also, something I tend to forget until I glance over his record again for Harry King. Lest we forget, he only made his debut in 2020 in his winning season of the Porsche Carrera Cup GB. That was his first season in Carrera Cup competition, having focused on Ginettas up to that point prior. It's amazing how quickly he's adapted to the world of Porsche Cup racing. And of course, so often you see the leading lights of Porsche Cup fast forward 5 years and suddenly they're in factory seats Le Mans and things of that nature. Yeah. There really is a huge pipeline. Hence we have things like the talent pool initiative in Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland, you know, funneling the young stars of Carrera Cup up through the ranks as factory Porsche drivers.
And you mentioned the talent pool, and of course in the Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux, that is coached and mentored by former Porsche factory driver Dirk Werner. And we have 4 drivers in the talent pool, and one of them, Sebastian Framer, one of them, Lucas van Eindhoven, one of them, Rick Cohen, and the other one, Harry King. That's high recommendation for the talent pool, I would say. And it is more than just driving tuition. It's physical, mental, nutrition, dealing with the media. They need to do that. Retaining sponsors, social media, you name it. That's what they're trained in. Wonderful initiative. Right, back to the screens. Busy getting caught up here. It is still King who leads the way from Cordial, Soulé, Framer into 4th. Now, what is Parijs doing? Parijs is on track. He's on his outlap at the moment. So he is winding himself up for one last attempt at the front of the grid. And he'd like to get up at the very least on the front row. He'd like to unseat Harry King if he possibly can. Good luck with that one. He's got a little less than 3 minutes and whatever's remaining of the lap that he will be on once the clock strikes 0. We currently focusing on Xavier Masson in the number 28 car. You can see his times on the screen. He was 7th going into this lap. He jumps up to 3rd. So Masson, that's a great lap from him. And that relegates the likes of Framer and Soulé and Kern and Parijs further down the order. So they've got some work to do in these last couple of minutes of this session.
Great time there for Xavier Masson. Of course, Xavier, among other things, a class podium at the Le Mans 24 Hours in a big old rumbling Corvette GT1 car many moons ago, and has been very competitive in Porsche racing for a long time, and fully expected him to be one of the front runners. 7th on the grid would have been a disappointment for him in the first race. Now he's up to 3rd, though. That's much more like it. He will, however, want to get another quick lap in, of course. He'd like his 2nd fastest lap to be just as good as his 1st, if at all possible.
Of course, Masson is in front of his home crowd. This is his home track. He knows his way around here. He's looking to emulate the last race at Zolder last time out, where he picked up a 2nd place. He'd like to emulate it. He'd like to beat it. And 3rd on the grid is a good position to launch that challenge. Our focus now, the timings is Dylan Dedali, and he is now putting in personal bests. He was 10th going into this lap. 33.171 in Sector 1 is epic, I think, isn't it? That's pretty good going.
Yeah, low 33 is very good indeed. 35.5 in the middle sector is also very good for Dedali. It's about a 2nd off the purple, but it may well see him up the order nonetheless. Doubt he's going to be challenging King or Cordial based on the lap so far, particularly in that middle sector, but this could elevate him from 10th on the grid. Our defending champion, a double champion in the Carrera Cup Benelux. He crosses the line now. It's a 38.3. It is an improvement, but it doesn't see him go any further up the order. Dedali really struggling to find the ultimate pace in this session.
And Lucas van Eindhoven still in 11th place. So if they can get that car together overnight, and I'm sure they can, overnight, over lunch, then he is going to be in a position to challenge for points. So it could have been a whole lot worse. We've got 20 seconds of this session remaining, and then whatever's left of the lap that the drivers are on. Harry King, I don't think there's not a lot of beating. Yes, a 1:36.127, 1.3 seconds of Gisela Cordial, and he is getting faster and faster, is Harry King. Just
a few hundredths off the theoretical best time, all of the purple sectors combined. Yeah. He's been not only quick but consistent, although of course it is actually Cordial who owns the purple sector in split 1. So Cordial has that going for him at least, and will have a good starting position for both races based on the form he's shown in this session. A lot of the fastest drivers in the session have already either crossed the line or entered the pit lane. So I think there's limited threat to the front runners. We'll have to see maybe whether the likes of Cohen or perhaps Price can improve on this final lap, though.
It's Price that I'm keeping an eye on because he is the closest challenger to Harry King in the championship. Cordial was third in the championship coming into this event, and he's in a good position to improve on that. But let's keep an eye on Price. Now, how's he doing? 35.897 in Sector 2, nowhere near really getting up to the front. Checker flag is out, so it is just the remainder of the lap. Any drivers that are on a lap are able to finish it and record that time. Again, to remind you, it's not just the fastest time, it's the second fastest time. Price does not improve, so 7th, he'll be disappointed with that. Cordial will be delighted with a second, not as delighted as Harry King, who records the fastest time of the session. He will start from pole position for both races 1 and 2 this weekend, very much as you were on that front. But may I remind you, the weather forecast is iffy at best, and that might well be the very large spanner in the works in terms of his championship runaway that he's doing at the moment. So crossing the finish line, the rest of the drivers, nobody improving at the moment. It's Harry King who's quickest. The red flags are out because that is the 25 car, Sven van Laraa, and he is stationary out on track. He was 18th. And that brings an end to our session. There is your classification. Harry King from Ghislain Cordial, Xavier Masson, Maxime Soulet, Rick Cohen, Sebastian Framer, Glenn Van Price, and Sam de Jonge rounding out the top 8.
Commanding performance in that session then from Harry King, it must be said. Fastest Pro-Am, Jan Lauritsen, and Sebastian Lejeune taking the AM class. Of course, the AM class drivers, if it is wet later, they wouldn't mind that because they're the only class that allow ABS.
Indeed.
And that could be a big beneficiary later on in the session. Couple of drivers not really getting the competitive times in that we would expect. We'll see whether we've got anyone clawing up through the AM class order come the first race later on this afternoon.
So there you have it. That was qualification for races 1 and 2 of the weekend. This is round 3. It's races 5 and 6 of this 12-race season. Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux. It will be race 1 later on today. Join us. Can anybody beat Harry King? We'll find out very, very shortly today. This will be for tomorrow. It'll be Harry King on the front with Rick Cohen alongside Maxime Soulet. Glenn Van Price will be 4th, so that'll be a bit better for him with Xavier Masson next on the grid. And the rest of the times just scrolling through. So that is the second best times of the session to determine the grid for race 2 tomorrow afternoon. But it is race 1, which will be very much our focus. We will spend the next few hours looking at the clouds and wondering whether the wet stuff is going to fall or whether it will be sunny. Will it be windy? What is going to happen? It will be race 5 of this 12-race season. Race 6 tomorrow. We will then be at the halfway point of the championship. Join us later for race 5. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.